I was recently with a client who was telling me about that she had for the past few years been dating this guy who, on the surface, was an extremely evolved spiritual man. He could do out of body, he could do lucid dreaming, he could engage with entities in the etheric realm. She then followed on with that she decided to stop dating this person because he also had extreme anger management issues and had been puking this onto her. Immediately, my brain and my thoughts and my feelings goes to, well, I don't actually think this individual is that spiritually evolved if they can quote unquote do out of body um, astral projection and so on and so forth, but then have extreme problems with their emotions and their inner landscape. Because to me, anyone who is that spiritually evolved should certainly be able to manage the behavior, right? Because the thing is, all feelings are welcome, but behaviors are not. And I think that link is often missing. And so, what I actually think he is doing is what I call spiritual cosplay. It's not actually spirituality, on the surface, it might aesthetically or cosmetically look like that, but if you just scratch beneath the surface, you will see that his darker side isn't integrated at all, and he is allowing that to run freely. My name is Tor. I am an intuitive and guide, and I work with people in groups, one to ones, to heal, to evolve, to transform, and to show up at their best. I do that through tarot readings, energy healing, one to one guidance, breathwork, meditation. Those are my ways to express my work. And as you might have guessed already, in this video, I am going to be sharing some of my thoughts and feelings on spiritual cosplay because I think that is happening quite a bit. Full disclosure, I am someone who leans into connecting with your spirit guides, connecting with the power of spirit, with source, with whatever you call it. But the thing is, none of that is an excuse to not also work on your more human emotions, thoughts, and feelings. And if anything, the work that you are doing to connect with your source should be a way where you are then more able to work on the ways in which that you express your thoughts and feelings in the earthly realm. It shouldn't become an excuse to be basically an ass to other people around you, because then again, it's just coming from ego, from over identification with oneself instead of being of service to the collective. And so I think that those two things has to go hand in hand. Another form of cosplay that we see quite a bit, and I mean, again, it's a topic that I find somewhat challenging to talk about because I think it's complicated and it's also something that I lean into myself, right? If you've spent any time on the spiritual YouTube, Instagram, TikTok space, you have loads of channelers who are like, I don't know, channeling whatever council, word council that exists in the earthly realm. You are channeling ascendant masters, archangels, call it what you like. And the thing is, so often these channelers are bringing forward a beautiful, poetic, lovely message that might be useful in that moment. But again, it is making somebody else the guru, right? Which is not exactly what we want. We want people to be grounded in themselves, to have the strength to cope with the day to day of what it means to be a human being. You know, most people, they just want to get on with their day. I observed this person on the overground not too long ago. You could see he was late to a job. I think he must have been some sort of painter, not a painter, but somebody that paints the walls, like a builder type. And you know, you could see his energy was perhaps a bit anxious. He was a bit late. He was feeling bad. And that's probably just most people's experience, right? They don't care about guides. They don't care about ascendant masters. All they want is to get on time to their job and get on with the next thing. Could he benefit from learning about those concepts and perhaps practice some meditation? Absolutely. But I think that, you know, myself included sometimes, we have moved so far ahead of the common person in the street over bringing them with us on a journey towards greater awakening, if that's what you want to call it. I'm not alone in this critique. I am beginning to see more and more people online critiquing the more new agey space in a healthy way. I don't think everything that they say about the new agey space is correct, but I do think that we have begun to perhaps step a bit too much into fantasy land, right? Because again, the thing with out of body, astral projection, lucid dreaming, connecting with extraterrestrials or other entities is that in so many ways it cannot be proven. And so often, again, it's used as a way to bypass your human experience, not to deal with your human experience, to take responsibility and accountability of getting on with your daily life, of paying bills, showing up as a partner, showing up as a friend. It's just used as a way to escape the world. Again, I am somebody who promotes and suggests that it's a good idea to connect with your source, with the greater being, but that connection with the greater being is meant to be used in a way so that you can show up in your daily life in the best possible way, and also to cultivate values of compassion, kindness, grace, empathy, all of those spiritual values that support us in our daily life. Channeling, venturing through the etheric realm isn't meant to be separate to your daily life. It's meant to weave itself into your daily life and to help you begin to address the more shadowy parts of yourself, if you like, to clear out the energies of the past so that you can show up in the present and move towards the future in a positive, optimistic, loving, warm, and caring way. So I am pleased to see that there are now influencers and other teachers and guides and so on and so forth that are beginning to, you know, critique this space. You know, I think some of them might be overdoing it, whilst others, I think, are trying to find that balance. And that's also what I'm trying to do myself, right? I won't always do that perfectly, but I do think that there is some room for critique and also to show up what I think works and to show what I don't think is working. I think the moment that we step into language and practices and ways of being that are just too far out, I think we might have lost our way. So some of the few ways to counteract some of this perhaps more fanciful, imaginative, sensational spiritual paths, it's simply about sitting with yourself and cultivating spiritual values that I mentioned earlier: honesty, integrity, accountability, responsibility, compassion, kindness, warmth, love, openness, curiosity. We can, through a daily practice of contemplation, awareness, and being mindful about ourselves, we can bring forward and nurture and rewire our brain to primarily focus on those virtues. It's not easy, it takes time So often, the neural pathways in our brain are so hardwired towards fear and negativity, but through practice, through experiences, we can slowly, gently, lovingly, compassionately, with grace, guide our mind towards more perhaps spiritual values and step away from spiritual cosplay into something which is less cosmetic and deeper. It is no surprise, perhaps, that if you've been following me for a while, that meditation is a really important way of getting there. The thing with meditation is that, again, it can so easily step into that more fanciful place, especially even with the meditation that I do, which is a guided visual meditation journey. I think that those guided visual meditation journeys can be excellent at connecting us with our guides, with our past lives, with the greater power at be. But you have to thread such a fine line that you don't step into fear, anxiety, and that you suddenly think the cosmos is run by some sort of extraterrestrial council, right? Because again, the mind will then be open to those kind of ideas, and because perhaps you've seen a YouTube video, and then suddenly that's also in your meditation and you think it to be true. So it's so important that when you are in that more visual place, beyond the breath and beyond the self, that you practice a tremendous amount of discernment, critical thinking, and that if and whenever those more fanciful ways of believing shows up in your mind, you just gently, lovingly notice it, sit with it, and then let it pass, without being drawn into it. And then suddenly your mind starts believing things that just isn't true. So, my hope and aim with this video was that it'll be a source of inspiration for you to start thinking about which part of my spiritual practice is actually rooted in reality and what has come from some sort of charismatic leader, speaker, guru esque person on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. What has my mind latched onto that actually isn't useful and it's actually making me more afraid, more disconnected from other people that might be different to me? That is my hope and aim with this video, that you take a moment to just consider with discernment, where has your philosophy stepped into fantasy in imagination? The thing is, I love fantasy book. I love magic. I love wizards. I love dragons. You name it, give it to me. But I also know very well that that is fantasy. It's fiction. It's great. I love it. I read for about 45 minutes every day if I can, and I often lean towards fantasy, probably because I have a proclivity towards that, and I like the imagination. I like stepping into that space. But when it comes to the meditation and when it comes to my spiritual practice, it is so important for me to stay grounded in myself, in my daily life, in using my practice as a way to process, to integrate, and to ensure that I am keeping my inner landscape in balance, and that, it just stays overarchingly peaceful. Of course, there'll be peaks and there'll be troughs, but overarchingly, it is peaceful. And there's always a way, there's a mechanism, there's a practice of bringing myself back to peace, especially when you hit one of those troughs, or, you know, there's a thunderstorm moving through my inner landscape, which happens, it's just a part of being a human experience. But my encouragement to you is to be honest with yourself about where have you stepped too far into the aesthetic, the cosmetic, the cosplay of being spiritual over actually being spiritual. I hope that you found this video useful, and if you did, hit that like button, subscribe button, leave any questions if you have one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. If you want to explore more work with me, there's loads of guided meditations and so on and so forth on my channel, So I hope to see you somewhere else here on my channel. Thank you so much for listening.